All right, I've got a question for you. Can you take great photographs with an action camera? Now, we all know the capabilities of action cameras when it comes to video, and maybe time-lapse or hyperlapse, but what about taking stills or the occasional family snapshot? Do they really cut the mustard? In today's video podcast, we're going to check out the photographic capabilities of these little action cameras and see if they are really as good at taking snapshots as they are at filming action-packed video. You know, one thing that makes me go a little bit cray-cray is that of all the people who watch the videos on this channel, more than 90% are not subscribed. Now, if you've enjoyed anything you've seen on this channel, maybe you've learned a little bit of something and you want to support us here at Adventure Tim, I would really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe and the like button. And if you really like a video, please feel free to share it with one of your friends. And in return, I will do my very best each and every week to bring you the latest and the greatest and the best news about action cameras like the GoPro Hero and the Osmo Action 5 Pro. Thanks for listening. Let's get on with today's video. All right, in just a minute, we're going to start talking about the photographic capabilities of action cameras, but a little bit later on in today's show, we are going to have a look at this week's marvelous mount, and we're going to answer one of your questions right here on the podcast. Okay, without any further ado, let's get into learning about the photographic capabilities of these amazing little action cameras. So here in my hot little hands, on my left-hand side, I've got the Osmo Action 5 Pro from DJI. And over here from GoPro, I've got the Hero 12 Black. Now, these cameras are great for filming video, and many other functions are on these cameras, like you can do time-lapse or you can do hyperlapse. But when it comes to photographs, they're often highly underrated. So this one here can take up to 40 megapixel photographs, and this one here can take photographs up to 27 megapixel photographs. So they're actually pretty handy little cameras. They're also, as you know, very rugged. You can take them anywhere. You can film in any environment, take photographs in any environment, and you're going to get a good image, especially if you're filming during the daytime. Not so great at night, but that's because they both have rather small sensors on these cameras. This one here has got a sensor of 1/1.3 inches, and this one here has got a sensor of 1/1.9. Now, although this is the Hero 12, last year's model, or 2023's model, last year's Hero 12 13 Black also has the same size sensor. Now, does a sensor make any difference to your photograph? Well, you bet it does. A larger sensor, like on this one here, means it can capture more light and more details in your photograph. That also applies to your videos as well. So that's a good thing about a camera like this one here with the larger sensor size. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this one here can take photographs up to 40 megapixels. This one, 27. Now, they're both adequate for nearly every environment or every occasion you're going to have having that size of photograph available with your little camera. Now, megapixels, what does that mean exactly? I'm sure you've heard it or read it before when it comes to cameras or photography. Well, basically, megapixels is the number of pixels or dots that you will have when a camera captures an image or a digital image. So basically, the higher number of megapixels, you're going to have a higher level of dots, which means more contrast, which means a greater dynamic range in the colors of your photograph. Now, a larger megapixel size doesn't actually guarantee you're going to have a better shot. There are other factors that are involved in getting a great image, like the type of lens you have, the lens's size. For example, another thing is the dynamic range that your camera can capture. All these things come into play as well. So you might have a camera with a high megapixel count, but it may not take photographs as well as one with a much lower number. So that's one thing to be aware of. Don't just get carried away by the number of megapixels that you see on your action camera or your regular camera as well. Now, both these cameras can take JPEG photographs, which is your normal type that you would have on, say, your smartphone, and JPEGs are great for most circumstances. The photos are basically compressed into a smaller size, so it makes it easier for you to share with your family and friends, or if you want to post it on social media channels. But there are some times when you might want to capture as much data as possible in your photograph. And that's where both these cameras have this option called RAW, for raw images. Now, basically, raw images are unprocessed undeveloped images, or rather they're uncompressed images. They're exactly as the data was captured on the sensor of your camera. If you think back to the olden days when people had film cameras and they would have had negatives in those cameras, well, think of a raw image like a digital version of the old school negative. Now, raw images offer maximum flexibility and maximum editing possibilities as well. So lots of people like taking shots in RAW and then taking them into programs like Lightroom and playing around with it and trying to get more detail out of an image. With a larger image, you're going to capture more data and you're going to capture more detail in the shot. The downside is that larger image takes up more space on your camera. And when it comes to sharing the image, well, it's pretty much very, very hard to do with a raw image. You're gonna have to compress it and then put it into a different file type to send it to your family and friends. But if you're into editing your images and spending time perfecting the colors and the shades and the contrast, well, then it's definitely something that's worth looking into. And the fact that both these little cameras offer that option is pretty darn cool. Another feature of action cameras is there are more than one lens option available to you. You often have like a standard kind of lens, which is called standard or D-warp on the Osmo, or it's called linear on the GoPro Hero. And that's like a pretty good sort of image that if you want to have your shot like nice and kind of relatively normal. You also have options for like a wide lens as well. Both these cameras give you those options if you want to capture more in your shot than what what you could capture with a regular standard type of lens, but you do sometimes get that fisheye effect if you go too big. Like GoPro Hero, I'm talking to you. They also have timer settings too, so if you want to get that great family photograph of everyone, you can turn on the timer, just like you can on your smartphone or your SLR camera, and you can capture that shot as well. And they do have a lot of other really cool options as well. Like earlier on we mentioned time-lapse is a feature that you can use on both these cameras, and hyperlapse as well. You can also go and change quite a few of the settings as well. You can change your ISO, you can also change like the exposure level and your shutter speed with these cameras. There are a couple of downsides too, and one of them is that both these cameras have a fixed aperture of 2.8 or f2.8. Now that's a pretty decent size aperture for most circumstances, to be honest. If you're out on a sunny day, somewhere filming, or some other location where there's lots of light, both these cameras are going to do you a great service. But if you wanted to say capture maybe a shot where you could expand the depth of field in your photograph, well, these cameras are limited in that department. They also have small sensor sizes as well. They're a lot smaller than say a full frame camera or a regular camera like a SLR, but they are surprisingly good for the size of the sensor in these cameras. Another area where they kind of fall down slightly is their zoom options. Really, on both these cameras, you can only either have 1x zoom, which is like standard looking camera shot, or 2x zoom. So if something's off in the distance, you can't really zoom in to capture all that. But despite their lack of zoom options, because they do shoot at very high levels of resolution, like this one here is 5.3K, sorry, this one's 5.3K and this one's 4K, it means you can capture a lot of data in your image, and say you want to crop into the shot, you're not going to lose out when it comes to quality. So now I want to hear from you. Drop me a comment and let me know if you use your action camera to take photographs. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to run through some of the individual features of the Osmo Action 5 Pro when it comes to taking great photographs, and then we're going to follow it up with the same for the GoPro Hero 12 Black. All right, so the first thing we've done, we've actually gone into photo mode on the Osmo Action 5 Pro, and you can tell by the little icon down the bottom here, just near my finger, which is a camera. Now down the bottom of the screen, you can see how we have the options where we can actually choose the size of the photograph we want and the aspect ratio. So what we want to do for that one is you just want to, look down the bottom here, we'll just kind of tap on that. That's going to bring up your menu, and the top of the menu says aspect ratio. And then as you can see, we've got the different sizes there of the photographic options. So you can go from a medium size, 16:9. There we go. Scoot across to 4.3. It does also tell you the size in megapixels as well, how big your photo is going to be. And then we can slide over here to L for large, and over here to put it into a 4.3.
Down the bottom here, it's actually got options for like what's called like burst shooting. It's kind of like burst shooting on the GoPro. So what happens here, you can either have it off, which is just your regular mode, or you can actually slide it over, and that 2P stands for 2 photos in 1 second. The next one says 3P in 1 second, and if we give you some other options, and you can even have like 9 photos taken in 3 sections, set in 3 seconds. So if you're after a burst mode, that's where you're going to find it. Up here in the top left-hand corner, we have the countdown timer. So if for example you're going to like say take a photograph of say a family or a group photo, you can actually set this, or even a selfie, you can even come into this countdown section here and you can choose what duration you want for your countdown. Like from off to half a second, all the way up to 10 seconds. So that's pretty cool. So you find your option, you go back here to the back arrow. Now at the top left-hand corner, if you have a look here, we can see the lens option. So it's currently set to wide. So I'll tap on him, and this gives us the wide option. And if we slide up, we have the standard lens or the wide lens. So what you've done is, once you're happy with those settings, all you need to do is go back, you can check them if you like, and then press the mode button. Whoops, sorry. Press the mode button to get out to your main screen. Okay, so the next thing we have a look above here is some more settings. These 2 little squiggly lines just above, just on the right-hand side over here. If we tap on that. Now in the Pro mode, it's going to bring up these options here. You're going to have exposure, you're going to have white balance, and you're going to have format. Now tap on the top one here, exposure. That brings you up to this screen here, and that gives you some options. On the left-hand side, we have the ISO, so you can mess around with that if you wish. All right. Or you can just keep it in auto mode, and over here you can adjust the exposure and the shutter speed. So to do that, you want to tap on the M button over here. Now that gives you the flexibility to change the ISO to whatever you wish. 400 is pretty good. And over here we've got the shutter modes that we can actually change the settings for that. And if we press the M button again, oops. Yeah. Great. Okay. And so we can change the shutter, and over here is where we can change the exposure. So you can actually just make that a little bit darker, or you can add a bit of light to the subject. Now, when you're happy with those settings, you're just going to tap on where it says confirm. But today we're just going to keep it in the auto mode because the camera's pretty clever. So we'll put on auto, and then we'll go confirm. Over here, you can adjust the white balance as well. So that's a pretty good option. We'll just go back to confirm, keep it AWB. Now, what we were talking about before was the photographs, JPEGs and RAW photographs. So if you tap on the format option here, we have a couple of options. First one is just your regular JPEG, which does a great job. But like I said, it's a compressed photograph. So your image has been compressed to make it easier for you to share with your family and friends, or put it on social media. But if you want to get more detail in your photograph and you want to have a raw image, this is say if you want to do some work in post-production. So if we tap on that button there again, I'll tap on the format option. Now it's going to bring up JPEG plus RAW. So this camera is going to actually create 2 versions of the same photograph. You can have a JPEG version, and you're going to have a RAW, which is pretty cool. And then you press the shutter. Take a shot. So of course we did the 10-second countdown timer. Great. Okay, so that's our photograph. Now what we've done, if you look down the bottom here, you can see how we've taken it at the largest file size, which is 40 megapixels, 4:3 aspect ratio, and we've got the number of shots that were taken in that time frame down the bottom with that lens. So what we'll do is we'll compare how those 4 photographs look back or next to each other right now, so you can see the difference between shooting in the medium modes and the large modes, and see if you can see any difference in the quality of the photograph. But the GoPro is a slightly different beast. So we're in photo mode here on the GoPro. We're in photo mode here on the GoPro, and of course you can get to that by tapping on the mode button over here to get to the photo option screen. Now, once you're in the photo screen, down the bottom, it's going to tell you photo that you are in the photo mode by this oblong. If we tap on that, now it's going to bring up to your photo menu or your photo presets menu. And here in the photo presets menu, see we've got 3 options. We've got photo, we've got burst, and we've also got night photo. Now, if you want to go in and make any changes to your photos or to your photo settings, like most things on the GoPro, you will know, you just tap on these little squiggly lines over here on the right-hand side. And this is the Hero 12 I'm using right now. So your camera, if it's a little bit older, might be slightly different. And in this menu here, you're going to see on the left-hand side, we've got our lens options, or at the top of our lens options. So we've got linear and wide. You tap on this arrow over here, it's going to bring up our capture options that are available to us. Right, so the first one we're going to have a look at is where it says output. Now, with a GoPro, it's slightly different to the Osmo, and that's what makes it a little bit exciting. Under output, if we tap on that, it's going to bring us up to this menu here with a slider. So it has your standard output, which is what it's set at by default, or you can slide it down and you can get your raw, you can choose to shoot in raw images right here, okay? Now, if you want to slide it up, this one here, it's got the HDR option for your photographs. Of course, HDR stands for high dynamic range. So that means you capture more detail in your footage, especially in darker and lighter shades. And if we slide it to the very top, it's going to come to a GoPro-esque option called Super Photo, and this is where you let your GoPro automatically choose the best image processing for your shot. So that's a really cool feature of the Hero. Now, if I just tap out of this one here, get back to the previous menu. Another thing I love about the GoPro has this thing called interval. So if we tap on interval, that now has this slider, and the interval is how long between taking shots. So you can turn this option on, and then the GoPro will take shots at a particular interval until you stop it. So you can go from 0 all the way up here to 120 seconds, which is like 2 minutes between photographs. So that's a great option. Let's slide that one back down here. We've also no option for duration. It does have a scheduled capture feature. That's where you can schedule for the camera to take a photograph at a certain time, and you can just slide it up to on. You can choose your time frame. What else do we have here? Oops. We've got timer as well, similar to what we had on the Osmo. So this one here, you've got a couple of different options. You've either got off, 3 seconds, or you've got 10 seconds. Now down over here, we've got zoom. Now, just like the Osmo, you only have either 1x zoom or you have 2x zoom. Just use the slider for that option there. So click rid of that one to go into super photo mode. Go back to standard. Put it back to standard. Great. Okay, so now we're in Pro Tunes mode. We've kept it in standard. Now these are the options available to you. You can change the shutter here if you wish. You can change your EV, and you can change your white balance as well. All done with sliders. There you go, sliders all the way, which is pretty exciting. There you go, so you can adjust your shutter quite quickly and easily. Down here, you've got your ISO maximum and your ISO minimum. So what happens is, say you pitch your ISO between 100 and 3200, the camera will find the right ISO for your shot. Over here, we have the sharpness option as well. That's where you can sharpen your image or make it look a little bit softer. Medium's pretty good for most situations. And then if we scroll a bit further down, and you've got a couple of different color settings here as well. Flat, vibrant, or natural. All right, so, okay, great. So now we're in this photo mode here, and when we're ready, we can press the shutter over here. And just like that, it will take a photograph. Now the next option you do have here is the burst mode. With the burst mode, tap on that one. And over here on the right-hand side, once again, lens, capture. It tells you your burst rate, which is pretty cool. So you can choose how often it takes a photograph. So up to 60 shots in 10 seconds, which sounds a little bit excessive. and tap on that one. And then over here, we've got schedule capture option and timer as well as your zoom. So let's chuck the burst mode on, go back here, press the shutter. So it's doing a countdown okay, great. So now we're taking a whole bunch of photographs in a very short space of time using the burst settings that we chose in that previous menu. Now the last one, which is a cool option, is night photo. If we tap on night photo, once again, we've got the same kind of options we had before. You've got lenses. You can also do things like shutter speed here as well. So this is great. Say if you're doing like a night lapse, you might want to come into this one here and adjust the shutter settings. Down here as well, you also have zoom and you've got timer options as well. I have that one 3 seconds. And here's your Pro Tunes options, very similar to what we saw earlier.
So there you have it, a little bit of an unpack of the photo modes of both these little cameras. What do you think? Let me know in the comments section down below. Do you use your action camera to take stills as well, or do you just use it for your snowboarding trips or the times when you head down to the beach to do a little bit of snorkeling? Let me know in the comment section down below. Okay, so right now is one of my favorite parts of the podcast when we talk about a marvelous mount that I've discovered recently. And this one here is a tiny one, but it's a ripper. It's from Sunny Life, and it's a little attachment that you can put on the bottom of your DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro. It's magnetic. Here's my Osmo Action 5 Pro. As you can see, it clicks on there like quite quickly and quite easily, like the regular DJI magnetic option. But the cool thing about this is you can actually pull down these little teeth here, or these little arms or legs, or whatever you want to call them. And it means that you can actually attach this accessory, you can attach the camera with this accessory to any GoPro or regular action camera mount. And there you go. Now it's been quickly and easily attached to the regular standard action camera mount. Now, I'm going to sound like one of those guys who used to sell steak knives on TV back in the 90s. But wait, there is more. The guy here in Australia was from a company called Demtel, and they were highly annoying, but they sold a lot of steak knives. Anyway, so another really cool thing about this magnetic accessory is, besides these awesome little feet or fingers, if you want to call them that, is that if you flip it over here, you can see on the bottom, we also have a 1/4-inch mount here. So you can just attach this to a regular tripod. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to attach my Osmo Action 5 Pro to a normal standard tripod with a normal standard tripod mount, and had to try to find some other weird accessory option to get around that. But with this little bad boy here, I am now good to go for when it comes to attaching this to like a regular action camera mount, or the normal tripod with the 1/4 mount, or 1/4-inch screw joint there. So, and as you can see, quickly and easily, you can remove it or attach it to the Osmo. So that's today's marvelous mount. Let me know what you think of this marvelous mount. If you have a marvelous mount that you'd like me to review here on the channel, hit me up in the comment section down below. Love to hear from you. Time for this week's mailbag, and we're going to jam in 2 of your questions or comments from the last few weeks into this section today, because the first one is a rather short one, but it's a rather important one for me to answer. Now, a couple of weeks back, I did a video on the DJI Mimo app, and I kind of showed you how you could actually use it to record and edit your videos. It was a lot of fun to use, but there is a bit of a problem when it does come to this Mimo app. You can't find it on the Google Play Store. And that's a comment that was highlighted to me recently by first name, last name, who sent me this little message up here on the screen. I know it is a major pain in the neck. If you go to the Apple Store or the App Store, you can easily find the Mimo app. But when it comes to Android devices, which do use Google Play, the only place to get the Mimo app is to actually go to DJI's website and then go to the download section, and there you'll be able to find the DJI Mimo app. It's a great app and makes your experience with using your Osmo Action 5 Pro or any other Osmo Action camera so much easier and so much more fun. What I'll do, I'll put a link to the download section of DJI's site down below in the description if anybody wants to click on that link to put that awesome little app, the Mimo app, on their phone or their smart device. Now, my second question comes from Jules1990. And now Jules has got an Osmo Action camera, but he's also just recently bought a gimbal that he's been using with his Action camera. And he wants to find out if he needs to use both the gimbal and say the Rocksteady option on your Osmo. Well, the short answer really is no. When you use an Action camera, it has an electronic gimbal built into it. And that's what Rocksteady is basically, the stabilization program they use on the Osmo Action 5 Pro. That's basically what Rocksteady is. It's like a electronic gimbal. GoPro has its own version when it comes to a stabilization on its camera. Now, if you turn off the stabilization, like say you turn off Rocksteady, what happens is you now have the camera at the widest possible lens. Because when you use stabilization, what it actually does is it actually crops in the original shot into something smaller, so when the camera moves around, you can stabilize it and you're not going to notice like much movement. If you ever turn off the Rocksteady and just try to film somewhere out and about, or hyper smooth it's called on the GoPro, if you turn those options off, you're going to notice a lot of shakiness and the video is going to be very, very hard to watch. However, if you have a gimbal and you put it on a gimbal, then the gimbal takes over the stabilization role that the camera used to play. So what that means is now you don't need to have your Rocksteady or your on your Osmo or your hyper smooth on your GoPro, because the gimbal does all that for you. Probably more than 90% of the time, you're going to find that you're not going to need that because both these cameras do a great job when it comes to stabilization. But if you do want to go down that route and you do want to buy a gimbal, it is like an extra piece of equipment to carry, okay? If you can put up with that. Well, if you're going to be using a gimbal, then you can definitely turn off these stabilization settings on your Action camera. Well, I hope that answers your question, mate. Hey, well, what a big podcast we've had today. We've gone through using your Action camera to take stills. We've looked at a marvelous mount, which is really, really cheap. For example, here in Australia, it only cost about 20 bucks for that one. And we've also answered a couple of your awesome questions. As I said earlier, if you have any questions or comments, hit me up down below in the comment section of this video or any video on the channel. I check them all and I read all your comments and I'll do my very best to answer them as well as I possibly can. Thanks for your company. I do appreciate your time and I'll see you in the next video.